My Weird School Special, Book Number 4, Bunny Double, We're in Trouble. Written by Dan Gutman. Pictures by Jim Pelot. Chapter 10, The Last Peep. Ah! We all screamed. Not only did the Easter Bunny have his bunny head on the floor next to him, but the guy inside the Easter Bunny suit was somebody we all knew. "You're not the Easter Bunny," Michael shouted. "You're Boomer Wiggins." Michael was right. Boomer Wiggins is a famous football player. He came to visit our class last year when our teacher was Miss Daisy. He is cool. "Yeah, so what?" grunted Boomer Wiggins, letting out a burp. "What are you doing dressed up like the Easter Bunny?" I asked. "I retired from football last year," Boomer told us, "but I couldn't find a job anywhere. Nobody wanted to hire me. I applied to be Santa Claus, but they said I wasn't fat enough. I applied to be the Tooth Fairy, but they said I wasn't skinny enough. So I took this job." Boomer looked sad. He had a big chocolate bunny in his bunny hand. He bit one of the ears off. There were lots of candy boxes scattered on the floor around the chair Boomer Wiggins was sitting in. "So that's why we didn't get any candy. Boomer had it all." "You'll get another job, Boomer," Andrea told him. "My mom always says that if you put your mind to it, you can do anything." Boomer didn't look convinced. "When I played football, kids used to ask me for autographs," he muttered as he bit off the bunny's other ear. "They used to send me fan letters. Not anymore. Nobody loves me." "We love you, Boomer," said Andrea. "Yeah, we love you," said Emily. I wasn't about to use the L word, but I went over and gave Boomer a hug. So did Alexia. We told Boomer that he shouldn't be ashamed to dress up as the Easter Bunny because the Easter Bunny brings lots of joy to girls and boys, but that didn't seem to cheer him up any. "Leave me alone," Boomer said. "Just let me sit here and stuff my face with junk food." That's when the most amazing thing in the history of the world happened. Boomer reached into the pocket of his bunny costume, and you know what he pulled out? A peep! "So that's where all the peeps went," I shouted. "Boomer, you ate all the peeps?" asked Alexia. "I did not," Boomer replied. "I still have one left." With that, he popped the peep into his mouth. "No!" we all shouted. Boomer Wiggins ate the last peep. Chapter 11, Thinking Outside the Box. We decided to leave Boomer alone and go back to the party so we could open our plastic eggs and eat the candy inside. But when we got to the lawn, the other kids were gathered around Mr. Klutz and Mrs. Bubbles. She was holding a big basket, and it was filled with all our eggs. "Hey, those are our eggs," I said. "We found them." "We're going to try something different this year," Mr. Klutz said. "I'm going to open the eggs for you." "But we get what's inside, right?" shouted Michael. "Of course," said Mrs. Bubbles. "You kids get the prizes." Mr. Klutz opened an egg. I thought a piece of candy was going to fall out, but it didn't. You know what fell out? A piece of paper. What? No candy? Each piece of paper has a question written on it, said Mr. Klutz. The first child to answer the question correctly will get a chocolate-covered marshmallow bunny. A chocolate-covered marshmallow bunny? Count me in. I love chocolate-covered marshmallow bunnies. I looked at Andrea. Andrea looked at me. We both made mean faces at each other. There was no way little Miss Know-It-all was going to win the chocolate-covered marshmallow bunnies. Okay, said Mr. Klutz as he opened the first egg. What is 7 times 8? 99, I yelled. Ha! In your face, Andrea. 56, yelled Andrea. Right, said Mr. Klutz. Andrea gets a chocolate-covered marshmallow bunny. Oh, man, I shouted. No fair. Andrea went up and got her chocolate-covered marshmallow bunny. Then she stuck out her tongue at me. Next question, Mr. Klutz said as he cracked open another egg. What's the difference between fiction and non-fiction? Non-fiction has no fiction in it, I shouted. It's like non-fat milk. Non-fiction is real and fiction is a made-up story, shouted Andrea. Right, said Mr. Klutz. He gave Andrea another chocolate-covered marshmallow bunny. Bummer in the summer. This game was no fun at all. Mr. Klutz opened another egg. What is above the United States? He asked. The sky, I shouted. Canada, shouted Andrea. Mr. Klutz gave Andrea another chocolate-covered marshmallow bunny, even though my answer was just as good as hers. When did Columbus discover America? Asked Mr. Klutz. When he stepped off the boat, I shouted. In 1492, shouted Andrea. Another chocolate-covered marshmallow bunny for Andrea. This was a dumb game. Where do we get orange juice? Asked Mr. Klutz. From the supermarket, I shouted. From oranges, shouted Andrea. She got another chocolate-covered marshmallow bunny for that lucky guess. She had 5 chocolate-covered marshmallow bunnies now. Nobody else had any. This definitely wasn't fair. Okay, you should get this one, AJ, said Mr. Klutz. What do they call the man who wears a striped shirt and a whistle at a football game? Bob, I shouted. The referee, shouted Andrea. She got another chocolate-covered marshmallow bunny. It went on like that for a while. Mr. Klutz gave out all the chocolate-covered marshmallow bunnies he had, and most of them went to Andrea. This was the worst thing to happen since TV turn-off week. Not only was Andrea getting all the chocolate-covered marshmallow bunnies, but she beat me in the contest too. I was really mad. After it was all over, Andrea came over to me. I don't even like chocolate-covered marshmallow bunnies, she said. You can have mine, Arlo. Really? I said, taking the bag. Thanks. Ooh, Ryan said. Andrea gave her chocolate-covered marshmallow bunnies to AJ. They must be in love. When are you gonna get married? Asked Michael. I didn't like the gang teasing me, but at least I got some chocolate-covered marshmallow bunnies, so I didn't feel so bad. You're really smart, Arlo, Andrea whispered in my ear as I was eating a chocolate-covered marshmallow bunny. Your problem is that you think outside the box too much. Chapter 12. Run for it! It was getting late. The servants started picking up the kites, hula hoops, and other things off the lawn. The face painters, jugglers, banjo players, and storytellers packed up their stuff to leave. The big lawn looked perfect for a football game again. Well, it has been a lovely day, Mayor Hubble announced. Thank you for coming to Hubble Manor. See you all next Easter, said Mrs. Bubbles. Ta-ta. People started making their way toward the driveway. Wait a minute, said one of the parents. We didn't find the golden egg yet. Yeah, nobody found the golden egg, said another parent. You said there are $100 bills inside it, said a third parent. Did I say that? Asked Mayor Hubble. Ha! Well, I was just joking. That's right, Mrs. Bubbles said. The mayor was just joking around. He's always saying silly things like that. He's such a comedian. It didn't sound like a joke to me, said a parent. I'm not leaving here until I find that egg, one of the other parents said. That's when I saw the most amazing thing in the history of the world. Mayor Hubble took something out of his pocket, like he didn't want anyone to notice. He was slipping it into Mrs. Bubbles' hand, but neither of them was looking down, and they dropped the thing on the grass. It was the golden egg. Mayor Hubble was going to keep the $1,000 for himself. What a scam! There it is, I shouted. The golden egg. The Hubbles have been hiding it the whole time, shouted Alexia. Run for it, Bubbles, Mayor Hubble yelled. Then he picked the golden egg up off the grass and started running. Get them, somebody shouted. Mayor Hubble and Bubbles Hubble were running across the lawn to where the helicopter was sitting. The mayor ran fast for an old guy, and Mrs. Bubbles moved pretty well for a lady wearing high heels. The Hubbles were at the 20-yard line, the 30-yard line. Kids and parents were running after them. Some of the kids were throwing eggs, malted milk balls, and jelly beans at them. The Hubbles were at the 40-yard line. They were at midfield. The propellers of the helicopter started spinning around. They stole the golden egg, somebody shouted. They're escaping. Stop those criminals, shouted somebody else. Everybody was chasing Mayor Hubble and Mrs. Bubbles. They were at the 30-yard line, the 25-yard line. It looked like they were going to make it to the helicopter and get away. But you'll never believe in 1,100 years who came charging out of nowhere. It was the Easter Bunny. Boomer Wiggins, in his Easter Bunny costume, was dashing across the field at full speed. I never saw a man run so fast. Or a bunny. You should have been there. Just before Mayor Hubble reached the helicopter, Boomer took a flying leap and tackled him. A bunch of other people tackled Mrs. Bubbles. Oof! Mayor Hubble grunted as he hit the ground. The golden egg slipped out of his hand. Fumble! We all shouted. A bunch of us kids pounced on the golden egg. It cracked open, and the $100 bills went flying everywhere. The grown-ups were crawling all over on their hands and knees to get them. Somebody call the police, yelled Boomer Wiggins, who was sitting on top of Mayor Hubble. I'm innocent, I tell you, Mayor Hubble shouted. I was going to give you the golden egg, said Bubbles. I really was. Tell it to the cops, said Boomer. Hey boys, we need something to tie up these two creeps. Can I use your ties? Sure, we all said, ripping those dumb ties off our necks. Boomer used our ties to tie Mayor Hubble's and Bubbles Hubble's arms behind their backs. A few minutes later, a police car arrived with a siren blasting. Boomer told the police what happened. Good work, Boomer, one of the policemen said. Have you ever thought about joining the police force? Come with me, Mayor, said the other policeman. You and your wife are going to jail for a long time. But, we all giggled because but sounds just like butt, even though it only has one T. Grown-ups always get mad when you say but. Nobody knows why. The policeman shoved Mayor Hubble and Bubbles Hubble into the back of the police car. Na boo-boo on them. Hooray for Boomer Wiggins, I shouted. He's the best Easter bunny ever. He's our hero, shouted Alexia. Can I have your autograph? Asked Neil. Hip hip hooray, said Ryan. Hip hip hooray. After it was all over, we had a fancy dinner with ham, mac and cheese, poached eggs, and hot cross buns. Yum! It was almost as good as candy. Maybe Mayor Hubble will stay in jail this time. Maybe I'll start wearing a tie in case anybody needs to be tied up. Maybe Boomer Wiggins will stop eating junk food and become a policeman. Maybe next Easter we'll get some peeps and some real Chinese food instead of an egg roll. Maybe grown-ups will stop drinking coffee, standing behind the podiums, and talking about the weather all the time. Maybe Mr. Klutz will be able to get the dye off his head. Maybe people will stop walking into doors and climbing in and out of boxes all the time. Maybe Mayor Hubble will go to a doctor and try to solve his bathroom problem. Maybe they'll start making tuxedos for penguins. Maybe little Bunny Foo-Foo will stop hurting poor, defenseless field mice who are minding their own business. Maybe I'll talk Ryan into eating a sugar-coated dirt clump. But it won't be easy.